And the theater is just, it saved my life. Just bottom line, hands down. It truly, truly saved my life. I tell people that all the time. If it wasn't for Freedom Theater, I don't know where I would be.
And welcome to the podcast. Welcome back to the podcast. This is the Broad Street Review podcast. I'm your host, Darnell Radford. Today, I am still in this box, this red box. I can't get out of here, but like I said before, I can always bring guests in. They can get out. I can't. I'm still in here, but we are here today to kind of venture virtually to Azuka and Simpatico Theater, who have now joined in a happy union. We're here to talk about the current show on stage, 1 Pound, 4 Ounces. It is presented, written, and performed by Khalil Munir, who is here in the studio with us. Khalil, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, everybody. Great to be here.
I am telling you, as soon as this piece was announced, I think the excitement, the energy was high already. And before we even got close to opening, the show was already extended. And so when that happens, we know this is a must-see, and it was not a lie.
Thank you.
Went to the show. I was very impressed, seriously blown away by it all. And I was just observing the audience and seeing how they were responding to various moments. And there are just so many bits of this, like how you tell the story, how you use tap to move this story forward, I think was just so amazing. And I knew after seeing it, I was like, I gotta try to get a conversation in here.
I'm so thankful that you're having me on the show and just giving me space to be able to talk about the work and talk about community. It's so, so important. And speaking to that intimacy, I love it. I love the way the theater is configured because it feels like the audience is there with me going on this journey. And it brings you guys into the experience. And it's been awesome. It really has been awesome. This whole experience has been truly amazing.
That's great. I definitely, looking at the layout, because I've seen many iterations in that space, that was probably the best use of that space. It felt so full, but it felt cozy at the same time.
Yes.
Usually it feels kind of cavernous. It's a very small space.
Yes.
But sometimes it's just a very, scarce set design in that space. But I liked what you guys did to tell this story visually.
Yeah, it feels like when you walk into the space, you're coming into South Philadelphia. That's what it feels like to me. Like, even from the rooftops to the grass coming out of the concrete, the basketball court, the gates. I love one of my favorite set pieces is the telephone pole and the basketball crate and the telephone wire with the sneakers hanging over top of them. Like, the attention to detail around the set really elevates the story because it brings the viewer into this world. And that's been one of the most awesome experiences as well. So I've never had a set before, or a lighting designer or a sound designer, to be able to tell this story. And it's truly been awesome, man, to have these wonderful artists come and bring their expertise to this work.
Yeah. I think that's always the best thing. When there's a solid blueprint there, it allows all those other designers to shine.
Yeah.
Whenever you notice these elements, you can tell it's like the blueprint was there and it allowed them to interpret that in this space. Wonderful. So before we get too deep into the piece, let's talk about Khalil. Tell us about you.
So my name's Khalil Munir. Actually, let me say my whole government.
Yes, I was going to ask you that.
So my whole government is Khalil Abdul Malik Rahim Munir. I'm from South Philadelphia, born and raised. I found the arts when I was 11 years old. I went to Freedom Theater at 11 years old. And I was with the theater until I graduated high school at 19. I went to Adelphi University where I studied theater. After Adelphi University, I stayed in New York for a while. I was with the Negro Ensemble Theater Company. And I thought, oh my God, I made it. And then we ran out of money and I had to come back home and get a real job. And I just was miserable in that space. So I booked a 30-day ticket to California. And in 30 days, I found those things I talked about in the show, the apartment and the car and the agent. And I was out there for 3 years doing the acting and the tap dancing. And then my mom got sick, came back home, and I was like, yo, what am I going to do? I want to write the show. So I started writing the show, and the show has evolved over the years. There's so many iterations of the show because it's a working document. My life is always evolving, so the work is always evolving.
Yeah. That's something I noticed about solo artists. Your piece is always living.
Yeah.
Because you can return to your work at any time.
Yeah.
It's only when you get to a point where you're like, I think I've done this as best as I can, and then you lock it down and it's a published script that people can download and produce for themselves.
Yeah.
But up until that point, you are constantly tinkering at it, making it stronger and thinking like, oh, this is great that I can add these things. Yeah.
Definitely. And I think that's the beautiful part about the work.
Mm-hmm. So how long have you been living with 1 pound, 4 ounces? And did you have the title? When did you get the title into the mix?
So I started with this piece in college. It was a opportunity to be able to do a written work or a piece of art. And I'm dyslexic, and my teachers knew that. So they kind of gave me that option. So I chose the artistic work. And at the time, it started out, the piece was called Humble Beginnings. And it started out with a collection of poems that I wrote. And I wanted to tap dance and do the poems at the same time. And at the time, this was 2005. I graduated from Adelphi University, and that was like my senior piece. And I wanted to be able to use both mediums. I wanted to be able to tap dance, and I wanted to be able to act, and I wanted to be able to tell this story. So it started out with a 15-minute piece, and then I left it alone for a while. And then at 2000, I want to say 11 is when I picked it back up. And I deviated from the poems. I brought in August Wilson monologues. I brought in different poems that I wrote, and I did it at Freedom Theater. And Johnny Hobbs, he came to see the piece, and he said, Khalil, you're not allowed to do that. You can't use other people's work inside of your own work. So I was like, oh, okay, I didn't know that. So let me step back and do some rewriting. And that's when I had the opportunity to interview my parents. So I interviewed my mother, I interviewed my father, I interviewed my Aunt Tati, I interviewed my sisters, some of my cousins, just to compile these stories that I couldn't get when I was, of course, a baby, of course. And I got these stories and I just started writing. And the original piece stopped at college. It went from my birth up into me graduating college, and it stopped there. And I was performing that piece for a few years. And then maybe about, I want to say 5 years ago, I did the rewrites. Actually, no, that's not true, because I did the rewrites after my mother passing, and that was almost 11 years ago. So I wanted to incorporate my son's birth, and I wanted to incorporate my mother's passing within the story, and that was about 11 years ago.
Okay. Rewrites then. Yeah, when life happens.
Right. Exactly.
Got to build on it.
Exactly.
Yeah, and so now you're here. And so when did Azuka and Simpatico enter the picture?
So they entered the picture last year, about a year and a half ago, actually. I spoke to, Amina Robinson, the director, reached out to Simpatico and said, oh, I know this piece. You guys should take a look at it. And Amina saw it years ago. And I posted a picture on Facebook, or Instagram rather. And Amina saw that picture and was like, oh, this is a good piece. Let me tell Simpatico and Azuka. And they reached out, and we set up a meeting with Riva. And in the beginning, they were really hesitant. It's only 17 pages of work. You really can't see the tap dancing on the page. We sat down, we had the meeting, and there was some energy, but it really wasn't like energy where it was like, okay, we're gonna do this piece. So me being who I am, I said, hey, how about I just do an excerpt for you guys? If I can just come in and do an excerpt for you. And they agreed to the excerpt. They still really didn't know what was going on. We got into the room and I did the excerpt, and Rebecca was in tears by the end of the excerpt. And she was like, oh, I get it. I understand it. Let's go into a workshop. So last year, we did a workshop with Mama Z in that same space that we're in now. It was just my floor, and Brian Wilson did the voiceovers for my father, and we had a djembe player, and we worked on that piece for about a week and a half to be able to show to some of the donors at Azuka. And people walked away from that experience saying, oh, we really understand the work. Let's have him open for the season opener. So that's how we got here.
All right. That's a great journey. There's the uncertainty of like a company not knowing if this is going to be a draw for their audience, if it matches their mission and vision and so on. And like, that's something I know a lot of playwrights go through when they have their work. What would have happened if Azuka and Simpatico had passed on this? What would you
I
have
would have
done?
kept on going. Like, so I learned a long time ago as a solo artist, for every no, there's a yes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you have to believe in the yeses, and you just have to be able to enroll another person in your vision when you receive that no, because you're going to receive it. This is the business that we're in. I was tired of actually going on auditions and Khalil, you're so talented, but so this is why I decided to kind of create my own table and work my lane of creating my own work. So if they would have said no, I would have went to the next situation or next theater or until I received my yes.
Yeah.
Is what I would have.
So you talk about Freedom Theater, and that's what you and I have in common.
Yes.
So I wasn't in the performing arts training program, but I did work at Freedom Theater. I worked in 2004, I think. I worked in the box office.
Okay.
But I remember walking through. I was a box office manager at that time. I remember walking through the space, just looking at this building, how beautiful it was, and hearing the story about how Freedom was originally in the basement and then ended up taking over the whole building, and just feeling all that, and then walking into the theater, and I almost cried. It was so beautiful, and I was like, I can't believe this is here in this Black theater. Like, this is a wonderful space. And then every day, just seeing the kids come in to performing arts training program, and they had to do that password to get in.
Yes.
And I think at the time it was get up and get into it. But they had to put their own funk on it, and it was good. And there was a moment where there was a kid who wasn't feeling it, and they were just talking about how beautiful, how special they are, and so on. And they got into it, and it was a huge celebration in the hall. And I could hear this from the box office, and I was like, "See that right there? That kid knows that they matter to everybody in this room." And that was always a thing about Freedom Theater that was pretty awesome. And to find people who were connected to it was always amazing.
I think that's where I get my sense of self-confidence from. Like going back to the last question, what would you have done? That's the password. That's the lesson, right? The lesson is, you may not be feeling it that day, but there's something else on the other side of that password once you give it your all.
Yeah.
And to have that community championing you to say, hey, I know you're not feeling this right now, but guess what? I promise you, if you just give over to this experience and push through, there's something great on the other side of this. And I think that's the belief that was instilled in me. Like, there's something great on the other side. Even of the no, there's something great on the other side. But when you receive that yes, then you have the opportunity to really lean in and express, what you've been brought here to express. And I'm so thankful that they did say yes. And the theater is it saved my life. Just bottom line, hands down. It truly, truly saved my life. I tell people that all the time. If it wasn't for Freedom Theater, I don't know where I would be. I don't know if I would be walking in my purpose the way I'm walking in my purpose without that institution.
Yeah. Theater is such a valuable space to be in, because a lot of the frustration out in the world is because you can't really articulate how you feel. How you feel is, people aren't processing what you're trying to tell them. And theater and all of its processes allow us to craft a story so that more people can resonate and understand the message you're trying to deliver. And yeah, with that value, it's so funny that there's always been a cut to arts in school systems.
Mm-hmm.
And it's this function that turns us into more well-adjusted human beings. Like, if you can't articulate how you feel, why are you frustrated? I don't know. I just need to hit somebody,
Right.
And it's like, because if you can't talk about it, and often a lot of people feel like, the ones that are all closed off or just sort of shut things down very quickly, they feel like no one has time to hear them. And so they're not even going to make an effort to tell somebody how they feel. They just go, no, I'm done talking.
That was me. But before the theater, I didn't have the tools to be able to express myself. So I really expressed myself through fighting. That was my thing. It was like I'm frustrated with my mother and father not being around. I'm frustrated with the learning disability that I don't know that I have. I'm frustrated with my environment. And the only way that I could really express myself was through violence. But once I found the art, that was a channel to be able to then express those frustrations of through tap dancing, through acting, through movement. Excuse me. It was a tool that now I have in my tool belt that I can go to, opposed to the tool that I knew prior was violence. So now I have this artistic tool that I can really allow myself and give myself permission. I think that's the biggest piece. Giving myself permission to be able to express myself, to be vulnerable, to be able to tell the story in any shape or form that I choose to. I think that's what art has allowed and showed me that I can do.
Mm-hmm. So now that theater and performance have taken the place of that violence, how does the violence still exist in your life? Like, where does it sit, or how do you handle it?
I think able to breathe into it. I think I'm able to acknowledge it, see it for what it is. I think once you're able to name a thing, you can move that thing however you want to move it. And you're able to manipulate the thing however you want to manipulate the thing. It's not in control of you. You're in control of it. So I think that's the biggest piece, being able to name it. Like, I know what it is now and I know how to maneuver it and I can flow with it. It doesn't have to have the control over me. I can control it. So I think that's where it lives.
Yeah. And you take away its power because you've named it, and now you can class it. You can put it somewhere. If it's mysterious, then you fear it.
Right. Exactly.
The unknown. Yeah.
Exactly.
We touched on it a couple of times. I want to talk about this tap dancing.
Yeah.
Particularly how you use it in the show. And there are these elements where the tap is sound effects when you're doing like gunshots, and those moments I was just like, oh my God, wow, because it's choreography and it was so intense, and it's like you're using your body to to interpret the violence of a gun, but also it's beautiful because it's choreography. And at just those moments I thought were so well done, and every time I was like, I just kind of sat back more and just said, like, these elements, everything that came together. Tell me how that was incorporated in. Like, did you always think that that's what you were going to do, or like was there a conversation that was like, hey, what about this?
No, I think in developing the piece, it was through exploration. The crazy thing is I know what it sounds like.
Mm-hmm.
And I know what the tap shoe sounds like, the hi-hat and the low of the shoe. And one day I was so first of all of the choreography in the show is improvisation. The choreography is never the same except for that actual piece. And the only thing that's the same is the gunshots. Like, I know that I'm using my shoe to create the gunshot. That's the only time it's like improvography, if you would, I could say. And I was in the studio one day and I was telling the story and I was like, how can I embody the sound of a gun? And I was just experimenting with the sound of my shoe. And when I heard it hit the board, I was like, oh my God, that's it. That's the sound.
Yeah.
It sounds just like a firearm when you're in the space.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. So now what does it look like when I'm running? Or what does it look like when I'm falling? Just through exploration, I had the opportunity to find different things.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got those sounds and the trigger of what the specificity of having a gun in your hand, but also making the sound with your shoe at the same time. That was really through exploration. And it was fun trying to figure out how to move your body in a fluid way, but also in a violent way as well.
Yeah. It was just so well done. Like the intensity of those moments was just like, you really do feel like we're a part of the people getting out of harm's way with you.
Yeah.
Just the way you're moving around the space at that time. Everybody's heart's racing. It's not just yours. Like, everybody's just, wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you're thinking about, like, so I live in the Point Breeze area, right? And we live on a nice quiet block, but we hear gunshots.
Yeah. Yeah.
Somebody sadly was shot on the porch of their house, like 3 blocks from mine.
Yeah.
Like in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
And so it's like unmistakable. And
you can't, It's so funny. That's a line in the show. You can't mistake that sound.
Mm-hmm.
You can't mistake it.
Yeah. You're like,
You
we're too
cannot.
far from July for this to be fireworks, you know?
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. And it's also odd how it's so commonplace that you're just in the moment when you hear it, you're just kind of happy that you're not near it.
Yeah.
Because you can hear it, you can hear that it's distant.
Yeah.
You're like, this isn't that close. I hope,
Right.
I hope something happens. It's so odd that we have the way we live with it, you just kind of roll with it.
You do. And that's everything you just mentioned is what that piece encompasses. You feel all of that in those moments. And I think, not to say that I want audience members to go through these experiences, but I do want them to understand what it was like, because that's something that a young child went through. I went through that at 11 years old. I was talking to a childhood friend of mine, and he came to see the show, and he remembers that night. And he actually said, well, the people who were doing the shooting, he gave me their ages, and I didn't realize how young they were. They were 13 and 19. And when I heard that number, I was like, that's crazy to me to think that night, a 13-year-old and a 19-year-old were out shooting. And that night it's unmistakable. Like, it felt like hours, but it had to be only like 10 to 15 minutes. But 10 to 15 minutes of gunfire can seem like an eternity.
Yeah. And the urgency of their moment that required gunshots, like just thinking about that. What is going on in the life of a 13-year-old where a gun is necessary?
Right.
Right. It's rhetorical, because we don't know. But it's also just crazy that just because it's not your life doesn't mean that's not somebody's life.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And I think that's the power of the art for me, is to be able to share these stories and have people reflect and see humanity from a different lens, and to start the conversation and have the conversation. I'm into empathize about what other individuals are going through. You never know what a person is going through just from surface and seeing them, but being able to meet them where they are and give them some grace when they come into your space is important.
Yeah. Your piece, because it goes through time and it shows how your support system changed throughout the years. What's your support system like now? So
those same individuals are still in my life. So my 4th grade teacher, Miss Sugars, she's still in my life. Vicky and Don Levinson, they're still in my life. These women are in my kids' lives now, in my wife's lives now. Miss Pat, Miss Diane, Miss Gail, Dr. Yema, all my teachers who came to see the show, Mr. Hobbs, they're still in my life. So all these individuals who I grew up with, who were huge support systems to me at a preteen and a teen, are currently still in my life to this day.
What is the toughest moment in the piece for you?
By far, it's the passing of my mother. By far, that's the toughest moment to go through every night. By far, that's the toughest piece. But at the same time, I sit in it because I get to hear her voice every time I do this piece, and I get to hear her tell me, I'm proud of you, son.
Even now.
Just to hear her voice every night it's a gift. It is a gift. And I'm so, so thankful for it. I'm so thankful for it.
And what a great way to keep her with you.
Yes.
By having her in this piece, and you elevate and celebrate her in this piece too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I think that's one of the biggest changes. My wife said that to me. She was like, this go around, I see your mother as a character. I've never seen her before as a character. I've never seen her so celebrated as she's celebrated in this piece. And I think Amina did a masterful job of crafting those moments inside of the piece.
Yeah. I want to, before we end this conversation, I can't end the conversation without talking about Rajir Alford.
Yes.
Who is wonderful. I've known him for a long time. Love him. How did Rajir get into this production, and talk about how, all of that music was incorporated in?
Well, first, I would like to say he elevates the piece. He elevates the piece by creating this music in this world. It's so beautiful. I love what Rajir has created. Well, Amina introduced us at Uncle Bobby's, and we had a meeting. And after the meeting, I was like, oh, this would be great to be able to connect with this brother. So we set up an audition. And in the audition, he was very upfront saying, like, this is my first time doing this. I don't know what to expect. And at the time, he was also up for an off-Broadway show called Mexodus. In the audition, I was eating my food and he was warming up. But in the warm-up process, I was like, yo, what is he playing? So I threw my board down, I put my shoes on, and I started dancing. And we started vibing. In that moment, Amina runs into the room. It's like, what's going on? We're not time ready to start yet. What's going on? But I was like, yo, this is whatever Roger is playing right now. This is so dope.
Yeah.
I had to dance. So that whole audition process was so magical. And I went home and I talked to my wife. I said, this brother, we have to get this brother on this project because it's going to be amazing in what he can create and bring to this project. And things worked out where he was able to do it. And this is new for Roger, being able to produce the work and produce music, and to be able to be in this lane. So I thought that this would be a perfect opportunity for him to be able to kind of like spread his wings and expand his artistry in this way. And he has. And it's been such an amazing collaborative experience with this brother. It's been awesome. It's been awesome.
Yeah. It's a great element too. And talking about the set design again, like I walk, there's a park a couple of blocks from my house. It's like right on the corner. A bus stops there and everything. But there's always basketball tournaments there, and it's live. It's happening. And there's always like a DJ. There's like snacks on the side, things like that. And so when I saw that whole setup there, it was like, wow, that is very authentic.
Very much so.
Those moments, yeah,
very much so. The set is extremely authentic. You feel like you're in Philly when you walk into and a very specific part of Philadelphia when you walk into the piece.
I wanted to say, like, what was your family's first response to this piece?
My father was in tears seeing it. He's so proud of me. My sisters, my cousins, they're all very extremely proud of me. Just in my walk as a father, as a husband, as an artist, they're extremely proud of who I am and how I show up. But I'm very conscious of, like, this is not just my story. This is my family story as well. And I want to be able to handle that with care. And I think I have. And they're extremely, extremely proud of me, especially my sisters. Hearing it this time around, it kind of brings them solace as well to hear our mom's voice inside the piece. They love it. They love it.
I love how Khalil at the young age when he goes to visit his father in the prison is so excited to see him, and your father's all stoic because he has to be in that space.
Yeah.
And I love how you never stray from how much you love your father.
Yeah.
Because there's always this assumption that, like, your father is in this kind of way, and so automatically in the bad pile, automatically in the let's not give any credit or like let's not acknowledge him as a human. And I'm so glad that you did that because he's celebrating him even though this happened. It happened, but he's still your father, and he'll get out. And when he gets out, he's going to be your father still.
That element always, it never changed. And my dad even said it to me. Like, he would always ask, like, Khalil, you never held this against me. And I always tell him, like, why would I? How is that serving me holding this against you? What can we do creating our moments moving forward? Me being upset or holding a grudge against you is not serving me in this moment. So why not be able to what we're going to create moving forward? And that's always been my approach with my dad. And I think that served our relationship greatly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's true maturity too, because you could find something to hang on and just never let him forget about it, and it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah,
and it is quite common. It's quite common in our community, to just say. I mean, there's too many conversations about how the father wasn't there. I always hear on the corner, like, a few women talking. That's a baby mom.
Yeah, exactly.
Talking about how the daddy was no good and so on. And it's like, we need more examples of a father whose the love for the father never waned.
Yeah, my love for my dad never waned. I always, even through his adverse situations, I always looked at him as like, yo, my parents are my superheroes, and they went through life, but I just could not see any other figures. And mind you, I had other like surrogate parents, you would say, around me. So I think that balance between holding my parents in a high regard, but also having community around me to give that balance, I think I'm blessed in that way.
Yeah. Were there any standout responses from the audience that you experienced throughout this process?
Brother, not to diminish any others, but when Black men come up to me in tears saying how the piece has affected or touched them, it is so rewarding because they're allowing themselves to be in a space of vulnerability and not looking at it as a weakness. That's been one of the most rewarding. I've had other individuals and other demographics of folks come up to me crying and expressing how much they really enjoyed the piece in different parts of South Philly. It touched them and the story touched them. But that just to see Black men walk into the space, and these are some Black men who are not theater goers, who have never seen theater before, but have seen this piece and it's resonating with them in such a way where they gave themselves permission to be vulnerable with another Black man after seeing it. It's been outstanding.
Yeah, that is great, and it does mean a lot. Like I said earlier, we spend so much time trying to be stoic and trying to be strong for everybody, and it is a beautiful moment to allow yourself to be vulnerable, to allow yourself to feel, and know that those thoughts and those feelings are genuine and
they matter.
Be celebrated. Yeah, and they matter. They matter so much. What do you hope? I always ask people this. What do you hope an audience takes away from this experience?
It's been interesting to see so many demographics of people coming in to see the piece. So, like I said, I had folks who are former street individuals who are coming to see the piece, to elderly folks who are coming to see the piece. You have white, you have Black, Indian, Asian, you have all these folks coming into this room to share this experience. And one of the things I would love people to walk away from is your beginning is not your end. That's one. Resilience is a hell of a principle that you can persevere and push through if you change your point of view and your perspective. That everyone has a story, and everyone's story has value, and everyone's story deserves to be celebrated. Those are the things I would love people to walk away from after seeing 1 pound 4 ounces.
Well, the play is called 1 pound 4 ounces, but it's worth its weight in gold. This wonderful piece, written and performed by Khalil Munir, directed by Amina Robinson. The show is sold out. It's sold out, which is wonderful for Azuka and Simpatico, but there are some options, but there's still a chance for you to get in to see the show. Sometimes there's people who don't show up and there's things like that. So don't give up. You can visit the website. You can go to azukatheater.org to find out more about if any tickets open up and any space opens up to see the show. But Khalil, if they can't get in here, what's the future of 1 pound 4 ounces?
Brother, from my mouth to God's ears, I want to take this off Broadway. That's the goal. I would love to do it at the Public. That's a vision of mine. Even in Philadelphia venues, I don't know what's next, or this is all new to me, or how to reach out to other venues, or if it's done in Philadelphia once, do I have to wait a cycle to be able to do it again? I don't know how that works, but I definitely want this work to have a life and move forward, to be able to have other people see the work. Definitely.
Absolutely. Well, I hope some of our listeners are among the fortunate who got to see this production. And if you haven't seen it yet, I hope you're one of the ones who finds a way to get into that theater.
Yes.
To experience 1 pound 4 ounces by Khalil Munir, with music by Rajier Alford and directed by Amina Robinson. The piece, if you miss this, I don't know what to tell you. But, perhaps this chat would suffice. It is not enough. It doesn't do it any justice. You got to find a way to get in there. Reach out to azukatheater.org to find out. But Khalil, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. Yeah, absolutely. I knew after the show, I was like, I gotta get to him. Everybody was giving you so much praise and love, and I was like, I'll get over there. And make this happen. But I'm so glad we had a chance to chat, and I hope some listeners listening now still have a chance to see the show before it closes.
Yeah, me too.
Thank you so much. It was truly a pleasure.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it.